Okay, today we are finally doing the Labradorite nails. I finally got this to a point where I feel like it is repeatable and not just dumb luck that you got a random nail to look like it. So I'm happy enough with this. This technique, it took me about 30 nails to figure out this technique. It might take you a couple tries, but I think once you get the feel of it, you'll be able to repeat it. And there are a lot of variations to how you can do this, and I'll show some along the way as well. So the general concept for this, after doing 80 million nails, I felt like doing a center circular pattern that sort of radiates out sloppily gave me the best 3D effect for the nail. We are starting out with the Meet You number 5. This is the one from their Aurora mag collection. It's a really egg yolky intense yellow that has a deep blue glitter underneath. It's perfect for a nail like this because you're getting 2 colors for one. So the more variety we can get in all of these tones and colors and flashes, the better. I do love the brushes in these polishes, and these come potted or in bottles. And just so you know, the listing photos make these appear much more subtle than they are in reality. Just so you know, it is the same set. They are brighter. I love them. They're really interesting color combos, but just so you know. So when we're doing this, we are trying to get those intense flashes. You know, sometimes you can also just get like a glitter wave, wash. We want to get those super intense flashes. That's why I love using as fine of particled mag gels as I can, because that looks more like the Labradorite, which is probably why I like the super fine particled magnetic gels. It's really just a vicious circle. Okay, next we are going to do a sloppy ring around that circle with the Golden Autumn 1252. It's sort of one of the medium ones. This is a double rhythm polish. These are a really nice, again, fine cat eye, really golden cat eyes. And I'm just going to take a tiny brush and just sloppily paint it around the border. And I'm going to do this in sections so that I can get those intense waves of the mag gel. And I'm just flash curing these. If you feel like you're overlapping the gel a bit much, you can always stick it in the lamp and do a full cure. And I'm overlapping the stuff I did. And in the end, I almost cover that first gel I did with a slightly brighter one. So this is not anything exact. It's just to get this color gradation going out and to get that lightest, brightest flash in the center. And I'm not even completing this circle. That's how sloppy I'm doing it. I'm kind of doing a C around it. Okay, next up is our bright green flash, and that is also going to be the Meet You Aurora set. You can buy these individually, though. You don't have to buy it. It's like a 7-piece set, but you can buy them individually. This is number 3 in the set. Again, blue glitter underneath and a really bright green cat eye effect. And so this is just an accent. I'm doing a sloppy chunk vertically, like diagonally on that bottom part of the nail, and it is going into that egg yolk center. So I am overlapping this. And as a side note, on all my tutorials, if you click on the description below, I always list all of the polishes I'm actually using in the video. And when I do my Amazon storefront list for each tutorial, if I've used polishes that aren't on Amazon, I'm finding substitutions on Amazon that I think work so that you can still do the nail look, because not everyone has the same budgets to do everything. So I like being able to do that if at all possible. Okay, next up is 1249 from Double Rhythms Fruit Set. This is also a really nice set of cat eyes. We're going to just go in on the top and do a layer, and then also on the bottom. Basically, we're sloppily kind of filling in the rest of the black areas, but you can also leave some of the black areas exposed because it will kind of help establish some of the veining if you want. Because like I said, there's multiple ways to get here. Okay, next up, I'm going to put an even brighter highlight in that center point on the nail. I'm going to use the palest yellow in the Double Rhythm Fruit Set, but several of these amazing Terra magnet gels, the new collection from Cocoist, work amazing for Labradorite base gels. All of the ones behind me have these Cocoist gels as their base colors. Okay, let's get that super light highlight area in the center. And see what I said? I end up kind of going over that original gel, but I still really do like that original gel for these Labradorite nails. So even as I'm doing, I'm kind of exploring, options because I can't help myself. Okay, as that's curing, we're just going to do a secondary nail so I can show you these cocoas gels because I love them. The Aqua Glow is perfect for the like general base for a Labradorite nail because it has that perfect goldeny kind of khaki green, whatever you want to hue to it when you do it over black. And all of these are super fine cat eyes. And they're so fine that you can really see the streakiness in them if you're not careful with how you apply them. But for a stone nail where we're trying to make everything look natural, it actually works great. It doesn't matter. It's kind of better if you're getting some of those weird ghost sort of things happening in it. And they just have such a bright flash. I love them. Oh, look, in fact, I love them so much, I decided to go back on the original nail and just do a little blob of that just for a little extra something right in the center. So you see, you can kind of just layer stuff, sloppily layer stuff. We're trying to do a natural stone that has randomness, but also has crystallized patterns. So there, I just got an extra flash for myself there on the nail. Okay, back to our cocoas nail. This is Stone Mist, and this is a really nice, richer mid-tone color. And you can also, when you magnetize it, get really nice sharp edges. And when you are, sloppily layering this in blobs over each other, really helps the 3D effect. My last larger smush of gel is going to be the Sahara Dust. That is, I think, the lightest, one of the lighter ones in this color range in the set. Of these three, it's the lightest, and you get the brightest sort of flash with it. Okay, the final cat eye step on both of these nails is going to be adding the Gao 3331, which is just a really nice transparent blue cat eye. This I'm going to overlap onto most of the other cat eyes because we don't lose the color underneath. And this is going to help us create that nice Labradorite ghostly flash effect. And I kind of want this to be in line with that green diagonal flash we did. So we're just sort of cutting through vertically the circular pattern on the nail. And now I'm just filling in a few little spots where I just want some more blue flash. And while that one is curing, we'll do the same on the quote more simple nail. But as you can see, I still couldn't help myself when we have like 4 different blobs, but it's a more simple color scheme. I just want you to see that it can also work with a more simple color scheme if you don't have a lot of colored gels. It's the same concept as the other nail. I'm kind of just doing from the top left, a diagonal slash down to the bottom so that I'm getting that blue across the nail. Now, remember, I originally said I like that focal point to be in the middle, like the brightest flash. So I'm just going to go in with this My and B Hun Chen mag. It's the 01G. It's just a super fine silver mag. And I'm just going to do a blotch right in the center so that I get that super bright flash where I want it. This is what we have for the main nail. And I just decided that I just wanted one more little flash of green since I only had one on there. So I just put an extra blob in that little on the side of the circle there. Okay, this is what our nails look like so far. And now we are going to put the Aurora rainbow film on. You can use the Macart nail foil glue. Cocoist also has a foil tack gel, they call it. Both work fine. Just make sure you cure them for 60 seconds. I am using the plainest rainbow film in the package, the one that does not have any pattern on it. If you watched my last tutorial, you know I was complaining that for some reason, these in particular, the clear Aurora films, I could not tell which side was which was the transfer side or not. Well, the weirdest thing is now, I don't know if it's because it's oxidized with the air a little, something. The transfer side is now foggier. So now it's perfectly easy to tell which side is which. But people had a lot of great suggestions for how to do that if you can't tell. Like write a word on it, marker up, if you can't read it, it's the wrong side. Some people put tape on, but there were a lot of great suggestions. But for some reason, now it's just like the other foils and I can tell which side is more of a matte fog. So you just put it on there. I'm just smushing it down. I don't mind any of the craggly cracks that happen because it just makes it look more natural. And voila, there is our lovely rainbow on our nail. And you see how that blends out it doesn't matter that we did the cat eye sloppy. It just makes it look more natural. And that holographic rainbow on there now blends everything together. I'm going back and putting a little more of the rainbow in a few spots, but you don't really have to because it can all just look like inclusions in the natural stone. I could just look at that all day. I love it. Oh, look at that. Okay, and just real quickly, this is what our second one looks like after the foil. Now we are not going to put anything on top of these yet. Okay, bear with me here. Do you see this thing on the screen? This is my homemade tool. This is a coffee stirrer with, what is it, 4 or 5 insect pins. It's about the 00 size. I like these because they are so thin. It means I can get nice crisp lines that are very close together, and the lines themselves are very fine. I have just used a quick drying glue, like some sort of gel jewelry glue. You could use a hot glue gun, and I just line them up. It's about 5 of them. I cut off a piece of the coffee stirrer and I just sandwich those pins in the middle. And now I have multiple parallel lines, and I can do nice cross hatching. It looks less human done and more like a crystalline structure. We are going to be very sparsely and selectively, very gently scraping some lines into the direct surface of the foil we just put on. And it's more like you're just dragging it across the surface. You really don't want to put any weight into it. And it's not going to look like much. And it's going to be very, very hard to not do more. Trust me, I have nail after nail where I overdid this. It will just start to be too black and coarse looking. You're not going to get that fine line effect. And see how I'm doing there? I'm kind of, I want it to be shaky. And so I'm not even using it flat the entire time. I'm just sort of letting it flail around. And I want to, for the most part, keep the center clean from it. I can have a few little things in there to make it look like natural little imperfections, but that's about it. And it's going to take, you're just going to have to get the feel of it. You're going to have to do it a little bit and get the feel of it to see what it's doing. And this is also the type of nail, because we're doing this directly into the foil, you can mess with it a little bit, but you're going to need some practice nails, because at a certain point you're going to destroy the foil. This is not the only way we are getting line work into this nail though. So that's why don't worry about getting all this on here. Here is a close-up of what I have. You will start to find patterns that you like. And so just repeat those on the nails if you find something that's working. I started to find that pattern I was doing in that left lower corner worked really well. It looked really believable. So I started doing that on each nail I was doing. I liked sort of some diagonal lines across the top at an angle. I was also liking doing some shorter cross hatching, because that can start to help to establish some of the veining work in the stone. But again, it's more like you're brushing the surface of the nail with this. Do not use any pressure. Once we have our sketchy, cross-hatching, shaky line work on there, that's barely scratching in the surface, we are then going to go in with some very weak washes of alcohol ink. And so that alcohol ink is going to just slowly start to seep into these cracks we've kind of put into the foil. Okay, this is our last step before we top coat. Now we have to get out the alcohol inks. I am just using general craft alcohol inks. The set I have is Barely Arts. I used it in the last tutorial. And in fact, I'm just re-wetting the stuff I had on there with some rubbing alcohol. And then I'm going to mix acetone and rubbing alcohol in a little cup just for my mixing liquid later on. This brush is great because it's versatile. We can do the initial washes with it, and then we can go back in and do all the little line washes with that little taller tip there. And then I do go in with one extra teeny tiny brush at the end, but it's only those 2 brushes. And you are just going to have to get the feel for it, because it's going to look like we are hardly putting anything on the nail. And I will go back at the end and do a little highlighty stuff with some blue or blue purple alcohol ink, whatever you like. I'm just showing this so you can see how I'm just re-wetting and prepping my stuff that was dried and already on there. I'm adding a tiny bit of black to it. And now I'm going in, and I apologize on this first one. I didn't realize I was holding it at such an angle, so I might quickly go through this one and show the close-ups of the second nail so you can really see what I'm doing. But you can see I am just doing a very generous wash of this, and you can see how washed out and weak that black alcohol ink is. And so I'm just kind of patting it. I want some blotches. I'm not doing a nice, neat coat. And when you do that, you're going to feel like it's not seeping into those little scratches you did. But just wait, it will. So our thin wash is starting to dry. And because it was blotchy, we are starting to get some interesting shapes and shading happening. And so now we are going back in with our brush using the thin end, and we are re-wetting it and just doing gentle vertical sweeps down the nail. I don't want the brush overloaded, but I want enough to re-wet that entire line down the nail. So it's that combination of new wet, weak wash onto the drying wash that's making these new little striations of wet, dry, and it's making that ink, just thin little lines, because it's more working by the capillary action of the wet alcohol and then re-evaporating. So I'm not having to actually make that thin of a line. It's doing it itself because I'm just re-wetting everything with the alcohol and kind of letting the re-evaporation redistribute stuff and make it work for me, if that makes sense. And now I'm going to go in with my tiny little brush. And sometimes you might have some nice vein like structures starting to form from the ink drying. Sometimes you may have to just make a decision and go in and start forming it. And again, it's all about just doing stuff really shaky and messy kind of, and breaking up lines. It's hard also because the nails are curved. You got to be careful about doing diagonal lines across because they can start to look like a bandage across. It's hard to keep a curve out of your line work. You really want to keep these looking like a crystalline striation sort of structure. And now I'm going in and I'm actually removing ink now because I want brighter areas. So this whole thing is a process of putting washes on and then somewhat removing them, blurring some of them. You want to go back in and then start adding kind of like here, like some crossroads where there's maybe some nodules. It's just shaky, sketchy, squiggly, sometimes adding thin lines or refining a line, breaking up some lines that are looking too man-made essentially to you, just to keep it looking natural. You can always go in and erase part of a line, just dipping the brush in alcohol and then putting an odd offshoot off of it. And as you are constantly re-wetting and reworking these washes of alcohol ink, you'll start to notice that, oh wait, now I'm starting to notice these scratchy black lines in there. And it's because all of this is kind of starting to eat away a tiny bit at those scratches we did. And now I'm going to go in with the blue, and I'm just going to make some of these outer blue areas more intense by adding blue alcohol ink over those areas. And it's the same thing that we're doing with the black. You can put a thicker layer on, and then you just are going to need to go in with the alcohol acetone mix and wash it out a little. Kind of make it travel down into other areas. And that's just going to give you a little more intensity of color. And it's also going to help if you don't have a lot of cat eye gels, you can get some of these colors through alcohol inks instead. And if you feel like the whole point of it being Labradorite is getting away from you and you're kind of getting lost in it, throw up some reference photos. Like, here's stuff, that I was looking at. And here's what it should look like. This is before the top coat. You can see the scratches are starting to become apparent. That ink has seeped into there. We've got the combo of the shaky alcohol ink lines and things drying, making striations and inclusion looking like features. I apologize, this video is so long, but I don't know how else to go over all these steps. When you get the hang of it though, this part actually goes quickly once you get it down, because it's all just with quick drying alcohol inks, I swear. So you're going to see how thin that wash is. It looks like nothing on there. And you notice you can't even see it in any of those scratches, but as that very thin wash starts to dry, the ink starts to settle into those very shallow scratches. You can kind of see them showing up now. And we just immediately start doing those other washes of vertical lines. That's re-wetting everything. And that's getting us all those vertical striations. I can then start going in and doing some diagonally, horizontally slashes to get the sort of haphazard grid work going. And this nail was extra pale and I was not getting any help in the beginning from the alcohol ink. So I kind of had to go in and start establishing my vein lines in there. And then I can just go back and forth and mess around with them until I get them how I like. You can keep adding and subtracting. I can start to blur some lines. I can start to add my sort of little crossroads area where veins are meeting and creating a larger dark chunk. You can go in with just the alcohol acetone, and then I start wiping it off to lighten some areas. And once I have these washes of alcohol ink on there, I can almost create lines with across other lines with just using plain old alcohol and acetone mixed together. I just find those two mixed together work a little better than alcohol alone, and I kind of didn't want to use all acetone because I didn't want to take the chance of it eating up all of the foil. Here I'm just kind of doing, I'm swatting it across the nail just to try to get some more of those intersecting 3D effect planes. Here I've added some of the blue in around the borders, and I'm just making washes with it now, getting it to bleed into areas, to fade in and out. There is the nail before the top coat, and here are the nails. Finally. My lighting is a little different than that first video I put up, but it is what it is. And you will find on camera these can look very different. Sometimes they'll look, the black stands out too much. Sometimes they'll look washed out, and the 3D effect sometimes doesn't even pick up that well on camera. But they're super 3D and flashy in person, and they do have a nice medium tone balance between the colors and the black. If you overdo it with the scratching, then it can start to look too black and too messy. And there's all of my favorites. So finally, the Labradorite nail, the actual Labradorite nail. At a certain point, it's so long, we're just in it. So, let's just show the nails. I was going to show some other variations, but it's just going to have to be another video. I can do a little show and tell with some things. Frankly, I don't think I could even talk any longer. So if you have stayed this long, thank you. I appreciate you. I hope you enjoy the nails. Class is dismissed. Thanks again. Good night. Intergalactic nail artist, painting constellations on your Welcome to the bonus content for YouTube. I figured we'd just dork out with that little intro. So here's all the variations, kind of the stages of how I got to the nails. These are the ones, that center one, talking about how it can look like a bandage if you have too strong of lines going straight across the nail, and it's hard to keep them looking straight and not curved. Because otherwise I really liked that nail, but I wrecked it by doing that. This was the set, and I still really like this nail. This was the one where I was like, I got it. But I knew I'd been working on it all day and staring at it, so I just left it overnight and then came back and looked at it the next day, and I was like, I like them, but there's a flatness to them. And I did use some gray in it, and I also used this Agia Opticolor. It's a purple veil. It's not a magnetic gel. It just has the interference, purpley powder in it. And I did brush it on in different directions. And it does give it a cool look, but it still is a little flat looking. And then here's some of the other random stages of the Labradorite nail development. That one there doesn't even have the rainbow foil on it. I wanted to see what just a plain one would do, and it has a little more gray ink in it. That is just showing, you can kind of see it when you start to get heavy-handed with the scratching and you overwork it. That's kind of an example of that. Like, it's not necessarily bad looking, but it gets to the point, do you want that on your nail? Like, it's still very rock-like, but do you want it on your nail? Now, this one is just it's just the cocoaest, one of the cocoaest colors. Then I did the purple veil over it. And then I also added some pieces of flake glitter there. And it has the rainbow film. And then I just did the scratch work. So it's a more, unified color nail, kind of heading into Moonstone, which is I'm gonna explore that more. This is the first one I did. And I still actually like that one too. There's another very heavy-handed one, and also I put some flake glitter in there to see what that would look like some weird you know, inclusions. There's one last little look at those. That's when I started getting them to this clear sort of feeling instead of that more hazy gray of those ones I showed earlier. And then, so those were sort of the middle stages. And then this was the tutorial. This was sort of the final boss, if you will, Labradorite nail. And now I'm just going to put up some earlier process photos. I always try to just snap a photo of things I'm working on at certain stages because I know I'll never remember what I did because I just sit and do too many nails as experiments. But these are the base coats of the nails we've already seen. Don't know which ones, but here's one where I tried starting to paint in the line work with some black gel and, you know, feathering it out. Here's just playing around with getting the flash of the mag polishes in different ways. Here's just a super busy one. This one I really like. It's very ethereal, and I love that the ethereal blue vertical slash kind of going through the more horizontal. It looks a little landscapey to me. Here's a good example of when I said you could leave some of the black exposed. This is a very stained glass-ish look, which is also cool. In the end, for the Labradorite nail, I'm not sure how much this really does for it because when the rainbow film goes over it, it can really mask a lot of this. But then if you're scratching some of it away, it can re-expose it. So I don't know. There's that old phrase, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Like, that's kind of what this feels like. But play around with it. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe it'll lead to something else. And here's just some reference inspo photos of rocks, of Labradorite. This is some of the stuff I was looking at just to kind of get an idea of the huge amount of variation and all of the directions you can go with this. I mean, you could probably experiment. I love that, just to show that flash. You could experiment with these for like a year. There's just so much variety. This is just a different angle of one of the final nails, but this is before I top coated it. So this is just before that. I've done all of the ink work on that. Okay, now I'm just going to put up the swatches I did of the Meet You Aurora mag set, just to show you that top is on a black nail and the bottom is on like a milky white. So you can see the difference and how bright the colors are. I don't get the best angles on the ones on the left to see the glitter flashes, but those two on the left have a deep like pink glitter that sits below the sort of greenish mag particles. Okay, and our final shot of this behind the scenes. I'm just going to throw these up on the screen again just to show you the progression of the first set where I thought I had it all figured out, but then thought it was too flat and a little too gray looking. It didn't have enough flash, which then led me to start over again the next day. And then I got to this more very clear, crisp, illuminated, more kind of stained glass look and learned a couple things about, you know, it looking like a bandage wrapped around the nail instead of crystalline striations, etc. Okay, that's it for the Labradorite after party. Thanks for joining me again. Have a great night.